Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about some of the questions that you could and should be asking your customers on the vehicle of interest, So again, this is a customer that responds in a way like you start off by saying, hey, what brought you guys in today? What's your main reason for looking, shopping, that kind of thing? And they say, hey, we came to look at your blank. We came to look at your Maxima. We came to look at your Altima. And you say, well, great, that's one of our best sellers. Tell me what you know about the vehicle or how familiar are you with it? And they say, well, we don't really know a lot about it. You know, we've seen it online and we've read a few things about it, but that's why we're here. We want to check it out. So with that being said, let's talk about this scenario on the customer that named the vehicle. They came in and they named the vehicle, what they're looking for. Now, the first question is, do they want a new one or do they want a used one? Would they consider looking at a used one, or are they stuck on a new car? You know, again, it depends on how they answer that question, but they might answer it in kind of an ambiguous way that doesn't really let you know whether they definitely want a new car or they want a used car. Because, hey, let's face it, you have, when it comes to a buyer, when it comes to a car buyer, you basically have three different types of buyers. One of the three is a new car buyer. A new car buyer doesn't really want to hear anything about a used car. And why is that? The reason is because they probably had one or two in the past and they had a problem with it. They probably had some issues with a used car, and they're like, hey man, I'm never going to buy another used car. You know, those things are nothing but problems. So you have a new car buyer, and then you have a used car buyer that doesn't want anything to do with a new car. Why? A lot of advantages to buying a used car. Less price, lower payments, lower down payment in a lot of cases, and lower finance charges in a lot of cases because you're paying less for the vehicle. But there's a lot of advantages to used car. Depreciation is probably one of the big things. So, hey, I don't want to buy a new car. They depreciate too much. They cost too much, blah, 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 blah. Don't talk to me about a new car. Used car buyer. And then the third one is a combination of both. They don't really care. They just want the best deal. They don't care if it's new. They don't care if it's used. They just want, what they think is the best deal. So with that being said, you kind of want to know who you're talking to. But if the customer comes in and says, well, we're interested in your new Altima, does that mean they want a new Altima? Not really. But you don't know, and you can't assume, and I'm going to tell you not to assume. So here's a question that you should get memorized and practice and drill, rehearse this question, because it's a great question, and it's going to tell you a couple things, which is going to tell you what your mindset of your customer is. Now, again, the order and sequence of when you ask this can vary. You could ask it right up front. You could ask it a little later in your series of questions. But the question is simply this: hey, folks, let me ask you a question. Is it specifically and only the 2020 that you're interested in, or would you consider looking at something maybe a year or two old, low miles, still under factory warranty, where we could save you maybe $8,000, $9,000, $10,000? Is that a possibility or no? Now, here's the thing. That's, again, kind of a loaded question because there's only 2 or 3 answers that they're going to give you. One of the answers is no, we're not interested in looking at a used vehicle, right? That's not a bad answer, by the way. They could say, yeah, it depends on what you have. What do you have? Now, again, be careful when you ask that question, because when you ask it, you got to know, what you're talking about in terms of what, vehicle that you're going to show these people. So, don't ask that question if you don't have something that'll work for them. So, hey, is it specifically and only the 2020 that you're interested in, or would you guys consider looking at something maybe a year or two old, still under factory warranty, low miles, where you could save you $8,000, $9,000, $10,000? Most people are going to say yes to that question, because again, who doesn't want to save a bunch of money? Now, again, if you're talking to that new car buyer that doesn't want anything to do with a used car, then they're going to shoot you down. They're going to say, no, man, no, we don't want, no, we had problems. No, we want a new one. Now, listen, that is, again, that's kind of a good thing, because, in this process of trying to figure out what vehicle to put your people on, you have a big, wide inventory. You got 400 cars, right? Now, one of the challenges that we have as salespeople is getting your customers to make a decision. because their fear is making a bad decision. And one reason why they fear that is because they've made them in the past. But with that being said, our job is to help them make a decision. And one of the ways you do that is by process of elimination. Process of elimination with your inventory. When they tell you what they don't want, that illuminates what they do want even brighter. And that's what you want to do. You know, you really want to take your inventory from 400 or 300, whatever it is. You really want to take it down to one or two options. You know, people can make a decision on one or two, but they can't make a decision on, you know, 8, 9, or 10. You know, if your customers have, you know, going through their mind, they got like all these different, you know, options that they're kind of thinking about in their mind, then you will hear, we got to think about it. You know, we're just not sure what we want to do because, you know, we're confused, right? So one of our jobs is to help them make a decision. And one of the ways you do that is by process of elimination. So, hey, would you guys consider, if they tell you no, then, hey, guess what? They just eliminated half your inventory. I'm going to talk about this a little deeper in another video. But with that being said, some other questions on vehicle of interest. You know, hey, light color or dark color? You know, you always want to find out a color. Equipment. Hey, were you guys looking for something basic or were you guys looking for, you know, a few extras on it? Leave that question kind of open and generic. Don't back yourself into, number one, a color corner, and don't back yourself into an equipment corner if you can avoid it. Now, if your customer comes back and tells you, hey, we got to have, that's a different story. But I don't, as a salesperson, I don't like saying, hey, tell me what you got to have in your next vehicle. Because if you don't have it, guess what? That could paint yourself into a corner. You don't want to do that. You know, how many miles do you drive a year? These are questions that you could ask. You know, when it comes to questions on the vehicle of interest, there's a lot. And I'm going to go ahead and post in this video all the different questions that you could ask. But the bottom line is you're not going to ask all these questions with every single customer. But you want to know the questions because different people that you engage with are going to require different questions to ask. So, you know, what vehicles have you been looking at online? What vehicles on our website? You know, again, that gives you an idea of what they are thinking. But here's the deal. Because people end up buying something different than what they originally planned, you got to take all this with kind of a grain of salt. You know, 80+%, according to NADA, 80+% of people that set out to buy a particular vehicle end up buying something different than what they originally planned. So when you're going through this fact finding, you know, don't get all wrapped around the axle, no pun intended, but don't get all, you know, don't paint yourself into a corner thinking, oh man, they want this and we don't have it. Hey, guess what, folks? They most of the time will end up buying something different, especially, again, this is why this step is so important, because the better you do at this step, the better you're going to be able to offer up some different ideas and different options, which again, if they came in looking in their mindset for a particular vehicle, but then you asked enough good questions, you could find out, hey, there's some other options that these people might consider. So questions on vehicle of interest. Again, I'm going to post these in the video so you can write these down, but go back, get familiar with them. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out.